Good morning. And welcome. My name is Mark Sheppard. I'm Vice President of our Board of Trustees, and I want to welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Church in Reston. Whether you are on Zoom or here in the church sanctuary with us, we're so glad you are here this morning. No matter how old or young you are, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, however you identify and whomever you love, know that you are welcome here. A few announcements this morning before we get started. First, after coffee today, the Caring Circle Committee and the Life, Learning, and Engagement Committee are sponsoring a talk by Helen Hips about the aging process entitled, "I Can No Longer Live at Home, Now What?" Helen is a UUCR member, a nurse, and a certified care manager, and her talk will cover how to evaluate the right level of care, how to evaluate facilities, and how to obtain professional guidance throughout the process. You'll be here in the sanctuary, and if you're interested but have not signed up, you're still welcome to attend after the service, and coffee. Don't forget coffee. Second, we hope you will join us for an important town hall meeting on Saturday, February 4th, from 10 a.m. to noon. That meeting will be here in the sanctuary and on Zoom to discuss the 8th principle and proposed changes to Article 2 of the UUA bylaws. Information and a QR link to learn more and register is available on handouts in both foyers. Please grab a handout today and plan to join us for the town hall meeting. Everyone is welcome. Now, I was given a third announcement to make this morning. I'm going to save it until the end for reasons that hopefully will become clear later. Put you all in suspense. You're going to have to pay attention all the way through. Now let us center ourselves for worship. As we enter our time of worship together, please join me in some deep, quieting breaths while we listen to this morning's prelude, Bach's two-part invention in C major, as performed by our accompanist, Kate Grimball.
Well, dear friends, this middle-ish midwinter day in Northern Virginia is not particularly a good day for many things we enjoy, is it? It's gray, it's damp, it's dreary, and it's going to shower in cold rain later this afternoon, I hate to tell you. Not much of a day for a hike along the Potomac, not much of a day for tennis outdoors, not much of a day even for a romp with the kids and the dog in the backyard this afternoon, but a perfect day for church. It's a perfect day to come together here with friends in this safe and warm place to examine more fully the many dimensions of our lives, to reflect on the state of our world and our important place in it, and to ponder how we can better each build a soul and live with more compassion and health and grace. So welcome to church on this perfect day. Our opening hymn, Morning Has Come.
Good morning. Our opening hymn is number 1000, Morning Has Come. Please rise and bow to your spirit and join us in singing.
Morning has come, arise and greet the day. Dance with joy and sing a song of gladness. The light of morning shines upon each face. May it bring faith to guide our journey home. A new day dawns, once more the gift is given. Wonder fills this home and shared together. The light of peace here shines upon each face. May it bring faith to guide our journey home. Open our eyes to see that life abounds. Open hearts to welcome it among us. The light of love here shines upon each face. May it bring faith to guide our journey home.
Today's chalice lighting is by Stephen Dodenhoff. Joy and grief, health and sickness, light and darkness, peace and anger, life and death, wholeness and brokenness. We each bring all of these here to this sanctuary of unity and diversity for this 1 hour of this one day, and pour them out, commingling the oils of our lives to become the flame of this chalice, the symbol of our shared living faith.
Here at UUCR, we have a tradition of singing our covenant together every Sunday. Love is the spirit of this church. So if you are at home on Zoom, we hope you will sing along. The words will be in your chat box. We will remain seated to sing our covenant together along with Kate playing.
Thank
Now is the time for all ages. So if you're feeling young of body or young of spirit, please come forward. There's room on the floor, and if you want a closer view, there are seats up front. Welcome, welcome. It is wonderful to see some new faces and some people that we have not seen for a while. Welcome. Great to see you. And welcome to SpongeBob. Our story today is The Couch Potato. It's a part of the story written by Jory John and illustrated by Pete Oswald. If you like it and want to hear more, look for it. I want to invite you to join me in a little activity now. Please do this in any way you are able and willing. If it's just moving your little pinky or even just your eyes, that's fine. But notice where your neighbors are and make sure you don't bump into them, okay? Everyone ready? And you don't need to stand up. You can do this sitting.
I was ready.
But if you want to stand up and you have room to stand up, you're welcome to do so. Please. So start by shaking your right leg. And if you're here with us in the sanctuary, that's next to the window, towards the window. Okay, then your left leg. Okay, now stretch up your right arm. Now stretch up your left arm. Now both as high as you can reach. And then bend to your right, bend to your left, and then shake out your hands and maybe your entire body. Does that feel better? Yes. Yeah. So I'd encourage you to move away from your sofas and find ways to move your bodies just a little bit this week. And we'll now sing the children out with Go in Peace, or Go with Joy. Sorry.
We have a celebration this morning. We are now a debt-free congregation. Earlier this month, we paid off the mortgage we had on the new addition. How many years ago? 15? 10? 13. 13 years. And these are the people who helped make that happen. Holly, Holly, our president in Indiana, was going to send a little video, but it did not make across Indiana prairies. It must be the snowstorm that's occurring in Indianapolis today. But Fran and Terry are here to help me, and let's start with the facts, ma'am.
I came up just to give you a sort of refresher and reminder of what was involved in this whole thing. As Scott said, back in 2010, when we added what we now call the East Foyer and all the rooms there, one important part of the finances at that time was to take out a loan from Capital One Bank amounting to $450,000. Oops, I forgot to bring it up here, but I had a copy of the original note that we signed for the 450. And what's typically done, this is a thing you see in the movies where they take it, where they burn the mortgage, and because you've paid it all off. But I decided for fire safety that I wouldn't do that. So. Anyway, by the end of 2022, in December, we had been paying off over the 13 years, and we were down to just under $190,000. And thanks to all of you across the congregation and last fall's capital campaign, we received for pledges well over that amount. And so on January 3rd, we took the dollars that we already had at that point that people had fulfilled their pledges with, about $160,000, and borrowed $27,000 from our cash reserves temporarily
Temporarily.
Temporarily. And we use that to pay off the entire amount on January 3rd. So we plan to pay that $27,000 back when you fulfill your pledges in the coming months. And we also have, we have used a lot of our capital reserves over the last couple of years for building improvements in response to the COVID pandemic. We've spent over $200,000 in that time. So the balance of your pledges will use to sort of restore some of that money to the capital fund. So given all that, I just wanted to repeat what Reverend Scott did and what Fran is going to say. We want to thank everyone in the congregation for helping us to retire the debt.
And here's the lady who made it all possible also. Fran.
Not really. It was everybody here that made it possible. So I've been serving as treasurer of the capital campaign, and I'm really appreciative and impressed with the widespread participation and the generosity. So thank you, everyone. And an aside is I've gotten to know a lot more of you, and that's a real benefit to me. So paying off the loan on our building and having a debt-free church really helps us secure our future and makes us more attractive to potential settled ministers here. So that's a real benefit. And it also eliminates a sizable obligation in our annual budgets of $36,000 every year that we've had to pay. And this makes it easier to support programs, staff, and our building. So this is really cause for celebration. Thank you, everybody.
And thanks to Carol Plumley, we have a gigantic cake out there. You're all going to have to eat a great big unhealthy piece. So let's all enjoy the cake and the celebration. Congratulations to you for becoming a debt-free congregation. And now it's time in our service for all of us to share our joys and sorrows and concerns with one another so that no one has to hold these alone. And those of you who are joining us remotely this morning, which is usually about 50 or 60 people, can light a real or virtual candle where you are to remind you what is on your heart. As members of the in-person congregation come forward, those who wish, take a stone for each joy or sorrow and place it in the water which holds so much of our love for the world and one another. And if you wish to take a stone from around the glass bowl to remind you this week of what's on your heart, please do so. And those at home, if they want to write their joy or sorrow into the chat of Zoom, they may do so, but please be reminded that that does then become public. Let us now, as Catherine plays, begin our ritual of connectedness. Let us be one in spirit and affection. Dear Spirit of life and love that so faithfully animates this troubled creation of ours, we are grateful this day for this community that remains with us in both times of joy and sorrow. And we hold in our hearts and minds this morning all who are facing any hardship or difficulty, those who are grieving loss, facing illness or disability in themselves or others. In particular, this morning, we hold in our hearts Marge Lane, who moved this week from the apartment she shared with her husband. She's now at Trail's Edge in Reston. She moved Friday. And Diana Lord, who fell and had some difficulty, is once again back home. And those of you who know Diana Lord, I urge you to call her and go for a visit sometime. She loves company. She does have a caregiver every day with her, but she needs companionship and our attention. If those of you who know her would occasionally see her, that's great. Whether shared here this morning or held silently in our hearts, may our joys be multiplied and our sorrows softened by this community of comfort and calm. Amen.
Before I get to the offertory, I should say that my third announcement was about the existence of the chocolate cake. So, no. Yeah, no. I didn't want to keep people in suspense any longer. It'd be very disappointing to get to the end and find that it had already been revealed. So, but that chocolate cake, like everything else in this church, is self-funded.
Good segue. Nice.
Thank you. Thank you. And that chocolate cake, like everything else in this church, relies on the generosity of its members and friends, the church, not the cake, to fund daily operations and to ensure, that the church and its resources are here for us and for others, now and in the future. Pledges support our worship and music programs, our religious education program, programs for members and friends, community outreach, and connections to Unitarian Universalism. We now invite you to support the work of UU Reston by making your donation to the collection plate if you were here in the sanctuary, or at the link on the slide and in the chat box if you are with us on Zoom. Thank you for your generosity and for your support of our beloved spiritual home.
And one more announcement, if I might, before I begin the sermon. I will be in Wisconsin working this week. I have a job interview for my next position with a church in Wisconsin. And I'm only 6 months away from not being here, so as you call your new settled minister. So I did want to explain why I'll be working from Wisconsin this week. So I continue this morning my 12-part blockbuster sermon series on the 12 gates to the city. And do we have that graphic? There it is. I want to remind you of the central organizing idea behind this. In the book of Revelation, the New Jerusalem, God's holy city, is envisioned as a city with 12 gates, 3 on each side, north, west, south, and east, that allow us to, and this was in the original Revelation book, this was to be God's holy city where all the people are welcome into God's holy city. And I'm taking a spiritual bent on this. The next slide, we are visiting 12 sort of spiritual stances or pathways that allow you to enter the holy city of your own life by nurturing deeper, more meaningful relationships with self, with others, creation, and the mystery of the divine, whatever that means to you. So I hope that the overarching focus of this is great. And today we are continuing with a sermon on fitness, or the spiritual practice of taking care of the physical body you have been so miraculously given. And to get us going on this topic, Lesley, come on up, and I will be reading selected poems, the R-rated sections, not X-rated, of Walt Whitman's famous I Sing the Body Electric, which he wrote as an ode to the miracle of the human body more than a century and a half ago. He wrote, I sing the body electric. The love of the body of man or woman balks account. The body itself balks account. That of the male is perfect, and that of the female is perfect. The man's body is sacred. The woman's body sacred. No matter who it is sacred. If anything is sacred, the human body is sacred.
There is something in staying close to men and women and looking on them and in the contact and odor of them that pleases the soul well. All things please the soul, but these please the soul well. Oh, my body, I believe the likes of you are the soul. I believe the likes of you shall stand or fall with my poems, and that they are poems.
Head, neck, hair, ears, eyes, eye fringes, iris of the eye, eyebrows, and the working or sleeping of the lids. Mouth, tongue, lips, teeth, roof of the mouth, jaws, and the jaw hinges. Nose, nostrils of the nose, and partition, cheeks, temples, forehead, chin, throat, back of neck, neck slough, strong shoulders, manly beard, scapula, hind shoulders, and the ample side round of the chest.
Upper arm, armpit, elbow socket, lower arm, arm sinews, arm bones, wrist and wrist joints, hand, palm, knuckles, thumb, forefinger, finger joints, fingernails, broad breast front, curling of hair, the breast, breastbone, breast side, ribs, belly, backbone, joints of the backbone, hips, hip sockets, hip strength, inward and outward round, strong set of thighs, well carrying the trunk above, legs, knee, knee pan, upper leg, underleg, ankles, instep, football, toes, toe joint, the heel.
All attitudes, all the shapeliness, all the belongings of my or your body or of anyone's, the curious sympathy one feels when feeling with the hand the naked meat of the body.
The circle rivers, the breath, the breaching in and out, the beauty of the waist, and thence the hips, and thence downward toward the knees, the thin red jellies within you or within me, bones and the marrow in the bones.
The exquisite realization of health. Oh, I say these are not the parts of poems of the body only, but of the soul. Oh, I say now, these are of the soul. That's all Walt Whitman thought about the body. Thank you. Now, you know, when it comes to Sunday sermon time, Unitarian Universalists are generally really attentive and polite listeners, even during the reading of such wild and passionate poems as the one we just read. I mean, there you are, all of you, quiet, sitting there as good church mice, waiting for whatever I'm going to say this morning. Indeed, religious liberals have never been known for many spontaneous Sunday outbursts. Someone in the 19th century went as far as to famously call the Boston Unitarians God's frozen people because of their stiff New England unresponsiveness. But I know that doesn't describe you, dear Reston friends. You were a very responsive congregation. And while you don't often verbally speak up or cry out during my sermons, I know out there lurking deep inside each one of you is a spirit-filled Southern Baptist ready to shout back when I need you to emphasize the message. So, I really need your help getting this sermon going this morning, so don't hesitate to now respond verbally. Are you ready, brothers and sisters? Yes. Let's hear that. Are you ready, brothers and sisters? Yes. All right. Is there anything worse when you have tried over the last year or so 3 different diet plans to lose that last 10 pounds you don't want, to listen to a coworker or neighbor describe how effortlessly it was for them to shed 22 pounds in 6 weeks? Is there anything worse? No. And is there anything worse when your son, who was attending the local community college, as one of my colleagues described his career, cramming 4 years of college into 6, then listening to your neighbor bragging at the backyard barbecue, describing how his kids at Stanford and Harvard are breezing right through their education? Is there anything worse than that? No. And is there anything worse, right after you have lectured your teenage son about not losing your temper over an idiotic driver, to lose your temper over an idiotic driver and have your son call you on that? Is there anything worse on that? No. Right. And is there anything worse than coming to church on a lazy, perfectly pleasant January Sunday after eating a deliciously huge pancake and syrup breakfast with the family and no exercise in your Sunday afternoon plans, listening to your minister, who is a physical fitness nut, an endurance athlete, who has feverishly biked his way across America numerous times? Is there anything worse than listening to him preach a sermon about how you should take better care of your body? Is there anything worse? No. Right, but that's exactly what you're going to get. For I am passionately persuaded, you did very well at that you cannot have the spiritual, emotional, or intellectual health, that fullness of human life which makes life worth living, unless you regularly and vigorously also take care of that body which Whitman described. And yet this is a topic we Americans seldom raise in public with one another. It's kind of a taboo subject, especially in church, where we're supposed to focus on the quote-unquote spiritual. I'm reminded of the old Southern preacher who finally was talking to his congregation about raising more money for his salary in the church, and the president came up to him in the reception line and said, "Preacher, now you've crossed over from preaching into meddling." Believe me, I don't want to meddle in any of your lives this morning, but it is nonetheless my responsibility in this sermon series of mine to remind you of things you already know about your life, of what it's going to take for you to live your life with full depth of spiritual and human being. And one thing that is required is that you take wise and loving care of this physical mantle with which you have been given, and move and breathe and have your being pure and simple. One of my colleagues, the Reverend Donald Boudreau, once pointed out that Unitarian Universalists are no better at physical self-care than Americans in general. Where, he writes, are the resolutions at the UU General Assembly stressing the need for us to get our bodies in shape or to stay in shape? We UUs, he writes, live too much in our heads and are seemingly unaware, however bright we may be, that there is something called the body, which for some of us is really the part of the true Trinity: mind, body, spirit. Actually, there's a very old philosophical reason here in Western society and UU circles why we have trouble giving our bodies the spiritual import and attention they deserve. And that, friends, is the Cartesian dualism. The Cartesian dualism, which postulates a clear and absolute dichotomy between the fleshy, physical, material, carnal realm, carnal being a bit pejorative, and the realm of mind, body, and intellect. This harmful idea has held broad philosophic sway in the West since the time of the Greeks. First postulated by the ancient Greek thinkers Plato and Aristotle, the Cartesian dualism draws this absolute dichotomy between these two spheres. And although first articulated by the Greeks, Plato and Aristotle, it was the 16th century French philosopher Descartes who cemented this great philosophical distinction between the mind and the body in Western philosophic thought. In his sixth meditation on philosophy, Descartes argued for a position called substance dualism, which asserts that, quote, in addition to our physical bodies, each one of us also has an immaterial soul. And he further believed that, quote, a person's mind can exist independently from that person's body, and that it is not automatically destroyed when the physical body dies. I quote Descartes himself, "Two things, my body and my soul, are distinct, since they are capable of being separated, at least by God. It is true," he went on, "that I may have a body that is very closely joined to me, but nevertheless I have a clear and distinct idea of myself, insofar as I am simply a thinking, non-extended thing. I am really distinct," he ended, "from my body, and I can exist without it. Good luck." And so it has been, down the centuries, that in Western thought at least, the body and all things physical and carnal have generally been devalued and ignored often, while the mind and the spirit and all things intellectual and spiritual have been exalted and tended to. I think this has led a lot of us, even highly educated and thoughtful UUs, to largely ignore the primacy and importance of good bodily self-care. Because of the Cartesian dualism, we have actually begun to think that we can have a spiritual and intellectual life without reverencing and caring for our bodies. Yes, yes, we say to ourselves, I know I'm housed in this corpus of skin-bound flesh, and I know intellectually, unlike Descartes, that I can't really get along without my body, but where I really live and move and have my being is in my head and in the immaterial realms of heart and soul, and that is where most of my attentions will be directed. And thus we can fall victim, and do, and you know what I'm saying is true, to paying insufficient attention to our bodies and their constant need for TLC. You go into the hospital or get sick for a week and get back up, all your muscles have forgotten what to do. Just 1 week. Very unforgiving thing. When I broke my hip, I couldn't ride bike for a month, and when I got back on that seat, oh boy, did my butt know that. My butt told me that I have to pay attention to it every time. It was Jack LaLanne, the famous fitness guru, who said, "Exercise is king, diet is queen, put them together and you've got a kingdom." I love that. Now, I know what many of you are thinking right here, right now. I can hear your little you gears churning from here. Oh, great. Our minister, the exercise and weight fanatic, who bikes and walks every day, 7 days a week, even in the coldest of weather, yes, I was out in the rain this week, is about to go from preaching to scolding, which is even worse than meddling. He may be right, you're thinking in some abstract sense, but I don't have the time or energy, really, to pay attention to my body like he seems to be suggesting I must. I'm just too busy with my life, my work, my commute, my couch, my kids, my computer for that kind of rigor. I do the best I can, so get off my spiritual case, okay? Well, no, actually, it's not okay, and I'm not going to get off your case about physical self-care, not yet anyway. Besides, you can't fire me. I come pre-fired as an interim minister. I'm leaving in 6 months. I've already told you that. When I came here 18 months ago as your interim minister, I promised nonetheless to always preach the truth in love to you from this pulpit. And this morning, I'm giving you just a little dose of tough love, both physical and practical tough love. I want to talk about physical fitness this morning because most of us, even those who really try sort of hard to take care of their bodies, are still, I think, not giving this crucial aspect of our sacred and fragile earthly lives sufficient reverence and attention. Despite centuries of intellectual progress in the Western world, for we do tend to view life, I think, more holistically than we once did, that darned and ancient Cartesian dualism still has us by the philosophical ankle and unconsciously, I think, gives us permission to let the crucial physical aspects of our living slide into dangerous neglect. Paying faithful, daily attention to your body is really spiritually and humanly important. And so we need to talk about it even here in church sometimes on Sunday. For without a healthy body that you care for on a daily basis, you cannot really have a full spiritual or intellectual life, period. Now, for the sake of clarity and focus, I'm going to forget the diet piece, about diet being queen and exercise being, you all know how to eat right, even though none of you do. And I certainly don't. I'm not going to tell you what I had for dinner last night at a very good restaurant called Macone in Chevy Chase. But anyway, I want to focus on the importance of exercise in determining our health. I assume you all know that a number of recent scientific studies have concluded that regular physical exercise is perhaps the most important contributing factor in both longevity for human beings and, even more important, happiness. And many of you are also aware, though it is clearly asking a lot of us, that the federal government, the Department of Health and Human Services, to be precise, has recently upped the exercise ante and officially said that Americans should get at least 1 full hour of exercise, quote, most days of the week. Did you know that our government used to say 20 minutes 3 times a week was sufficient? They have made exercise 7 times more important. You should exercise every day for an hour. And this rigorous regime, in conjunction with maintaining a diet that emphasizes whole grains and nuts and fruits and vegetables and de-emphasizes most of the things we like, meat, trans fats, fried foods, and alcohol, is recommended for full and healthy living. And yet precious few of us pay anywhere near that hour-a-day attention to our bodies. How many of you have the little things that measure your steps? You know, the thousands of steps. That is a wonderful device. What is recommended now? 4,000, 7,000? 10,000 steps. Fantastic. Did you know that only 31% of Americans say they make exercise, quote, a regular habit, down from 37% who said so just 30 years ago? And another survey reveals that fully more than 75% of us don't get the exercise they need. And the U.S. Public Health Service says that just 20% of Americans exercise enough to gain any, quote, cardiovascular benefit. And with kids today, who are often couch potatoes and computer potatoes, are terribly sedentary and increasingly overweight, they're now recommending, as you know, a stomach stapling surgery for kids as young as 10. Jane Brody has noted that the average American, quote, spends more time showering than working out. I'd be guessing, of course, but I'll bet that we head-oriented, computer-crazing, book-loving, Bob, Unitarian Universalists, though you and Jane walk up here all the time from your home. How far is that? Yeah, I see them all the time walking to and from church. They're good doobies. It is not, of course, that we don't try. Each year, for example, hundreds of thousands of American households buy some sort of home exercise machine to keep their resolutions for exercising regularly. But do you know how many times on average these machines are used before they're relegated to a garage sale? 5. Yes, 5. And that's because somebody gets up on it and does too much exercise and is sore, and it goes into the basement because they don't do it gradually. You know, any exercise program you start, walk around the block, halfway around the block. Then the next day you'll notice you're able to go 3/4 of the way around the block. You must build it up slowly. 5 times most people use these $2,000 machines before they go away. What I think we need a new spirituality of the body, a new theology of reverence and respect for our bodies. Look, I know I'm wading into sensitive waters with all of you. I know you all feel some guilt about the way you take care of yourselves. But we really do need to take more and better care of this crucial aspect of who we are. And we need a practical new ethic of attention and care for our bodies, much as was boldly expressed by Walt Whitman, who just saw the human body as this beautiful, beautiful thing. We need to affirm deep to our bones and our being that each of us has been given this great, astounding gift of mind, spirit, and body, a valuable, holistic gift of being we must tend with diligence and respect and care. It was contemporary writer and mystic Wendell Berry who wrote, "You cannot devalue the body and value the soul, or value anything else for that matter. The isolation of the body sets it into direct conflict with everything else in creation. Nothing," he writes in conclusion, "could be more absurd than to despise the body and yet yearn for its resurrection." I am not, of course, the first religious leader to suggest that your body is an astounding gift. In his first letter to the Christians of Corinth, found in the biblical book 1 Corinthians, St. Paul wrote some 2,000 years ago, "Do you not know that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit within you, which you have from God? Therefore," he wrote, "glorify God in your body." And a few centuries later, 11th century mystic, I don't know how to pronounce this name, Mechthild of Magdeburg wrote, "Do not disdain your body, for the soul is just as safe in its body as in the kingdom of heaven." And it was Jesus himself who repeatedly said, love your neighbor as you love yourself, which I would like to think was Jesus urging his followers to practice not only good brotherly and sisterly care, but good self-reverence and care. And so if this were a mainline Christian church, I would have the scriptural authority to tell you to jog for Jesus, or walk for Jesus, or bike for Jesus, or jazzercise for Jesus, or pump iron for Jesus, or swim or jump rope, or play golf, or do water aerobics for Jesus. Any form of daily exercise for God's sake and yours that will give your body the attention and exertion it requires. Well, of course, this is not a mainline church. This is a Unitarian Universalist church. But I'm telling you this anyway. No matter what your age, no matter what your level of physical ability or interest, no matter what type of body you have, and no matter what your handicaps or deficits are, there is always something you can do for your body. Each of you is free and capable of taking better care, more regular care of your body than you did yesterday. Look, you don't have to look like some buffed bodybuilder like Jack LaLanne when you get on a bike or go to the gym, or you don't need to look like Michael Phelps when you hit the pool, or Simone Biles when you go to the gym, or Roger Federer if you play tennis, or even like that tough, inveterate walker, Supreme Court Justice William O. Douglas, who walked the C&O Canal all the time with his groups, and they wouldn't let him in that restaurant, I forget the name of it up there, Anglers Inn. He was so messed up with all the dirt from hiking, they wouldn't let him in there. They turned him away. All we have to do is be ourselves and get that exercise, again, at whatever speed, whatever level, whatever type, that our various bodies want and yearn and can handle. And regular exercise doesn't have to be onerous in terms of time. Just recently, I hope some of you saw the wonderful article, I believe it was a week ago Friday, in the Washington Post by fitness writer Gretchen Reynolds, who often writes wonderful things. She talks about exercise snacks, brief spurts of physical exertion, snippets of exercise spread through the day, which can improve metabolic health, raise endurance, and stave off the undesirable changes in our muscles that otherwise occur when we sit too long. This can be choosing the stairs at a public building. When I worked at a hospital in Memphis, I walked the stairs. I never took the elevator, just walked the stairs. Choosing to park in a remote corner of the parking lot at Harris Teeter instead of as close to the door as you can get. Walking just around your own residential block. And there was a new piece in the New York Times this week that said it's important to walk 2, 3, or 4 times a day, not just 2 miles once, but half a mile 4 times. Much better for you. As Reynolds writes, exercise snacks can last as short as a minute or two, and perhaps even half hours, so all during the day. So, here we are in late January. Weather, well, not the best, but with the new year dawning over us, and whether you've made this a personal resolution for the year or not, what better time to start new physical habits? Winter, with its sometimes bright sun, cool, crisp air, invites us outdoors for some rejuvenating exercise. My spouse and I walk every night at about 5 o'clock, away from the physical inertia of our computers and desks and televisions and couches. So why not gather up the kids or a friend or two this Sunday afternoon and drive over to a nearby park for a hike? Or tomorrow morning, on your way to work, why not get off one subway stop before the one nearest to your office and walk those last 9 blocks? You notice all kinds of things. It's fun. And why not renew that long-lapsed health club membership Some of them are very cheap. Planet Fitness doesn't cost you very much at all. And sign up for a spin class or water aerobics so you can experience the encouragement that others will give you. There are so many wonderful, life-giving ways at whatever intensity level you can do to exercise the human body, again, of any age, any ability. The truth is, dear friends, that no one of us has an excuse for not taking better care of our bodies tomorrow than we did today. And besides, you all know the unavoidable truth deep down. In the end, none of us can or will enjoy spiritual or emotional or psychological health or fullness of life and being unless we have reverenced and cared for our bodies as best we can. Yes, getting enough exercise takes some time and discipline. I can't tell you how many times I had a Zoom call with some colleagues, and one of them said, I've gained 10 pounds, I don't have time to exercise. And Nancy Ladd from the River Road congregation and I just simultaneously said to him, William, just do it. There is time and discipline required to make physical activity a daily habit. You just have to make it a priority, like shaving or showering. And as Unitarian Universalists, we treasure our lives in this amazing creation. We simply must attentively tend to this amazing, oh, body electric that Whitman described. I seldom quote corporate slogans from the pulpit, but Nike has it just right. Just do it. Now, I asked you to be Southern Baptists and say things back to me. What are you going to do tomorrow with exercise? Just do it. I'm done.
In that spirit, our closing hymn is number 1024, When the Spirit Says Do. We're going to do 4 verses, and we will sing the words do, dance, move, and then do again. So if you are at home on Zoom, we do hope that you will sing and dance along with us. Here in the sanctuary, please rise and body your spirit and join us. You've got to do when the Spirit says do. You've got to do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you've got to do, oh Lord. You've got to do when the Spirit says do. 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 Spirit
send you on your way this week with these words of my friend and colleague, Mark Bellatini. Go in peace. Live simply, gently, at home in yourselves. Act justly. Speak justly. Remember the depth of your own compassion. Forget not your power in these days of your powerlessness. Do not desire to be wealthier than your peers, or stint not your hand of charity. Practice forbearance. Speak the truth or speak not. Take care of your body, for it is a wonderful gift. Crave peace for all peoples of the world, beginning with yourselves. And go as you go with the dream, and with that peace alive in your heart. Amen. Have a good week.
We now extinguish this flame. But not the light of hope and truth, the warmth of community, nor the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
I hope you'll forgive me. I think it's constitutionally required after you hear that song, right? Thank you, Kate. We invite our congregants attending worship on Zoom to stay online for our virtual Greet Your Neighbor coffee hour to discuss the service theme and enjoy fellowship with other congregants. Link is in the chat box and will be on a forthcoming slide. Please also use the chat box as a virtual receiving line to register your appreciation for the worship service as you are moved. Those of you here in person are invited to join us for coffee or tea and fellowship, and although I now feel conflicted in saying so, chocolate cake, don't forget. Thank you for being a part of our community this morning, and go in peace.